and welcome. This is Blacklisted Radio. It's the second day of November 2013. My name is Doug Owen. We're live and direct at BlacklistedRadio.com. Everything that you need to be part of the show, including the interactive chat room that's live during the broadcasts throughout the week when we do podcasts as well, is at BlacklistedRadio.com. Of course, the Twitter handle for myself is BLN Radio. All right, let's get right into it. Before we talk about the Bankster bill, the $712 trillion worth of derivatives that the Bankster gangsters are trying to slide, and they already have through Congress, into FDIC receivership. That means you're on the hook. We'll talk about that and other things that are on the back burner. There's a lot of other little stories that we should be cognizant of, but we have a show. We have a show, and we have to talk about it. It's the Lax Shooter. Have you been paying attention to this at all? If you haven't, well, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. I'm all in. I'm absolutely all in. There was only one thing that I had to see. In Googling for the alleged shooter, a picture of him, his name is CIAnCIA. I looked at his name when I stuck it into a search engine, and immediately I started laughing. It's obvious code, and it doesn't take too much for people out there to have the eyes to see exactly who is behind this little theatrical show, and that is none other than the CIA. Why? Because his freaking name is CIAnCIA. Who did it? The CIA in the CIA. These guys have humor. They have a lot of funny things that they inject into the narrative. And so, I almost applaud this. The first thing I came to was that most of this is going to be used ultimately to continue to arm and militarize your travels. That's been an ongoing meme and push since September 11, 2001. No arguing this. I mean, travel has been heavily militarized to the point where we really are living in something that rivals Nazi Germany. And I don't just say that with, a cavalier, mindset. It's absolutely true. It's really, really horrible. So this is only going to exacerbate that. It's only going to make it much, much worse. And you have to wonder why Mr. Paul CIA in CIA. Let's just call him Paul CIA for the rest of the show. It'll make it easier. Paul CIA is a guy that hates the TSA. He hates Janet Napolitano, and he carries around with him anti-government literature. This is a reoccurring feature in most of these stories, and that is that these guys always have some anti-government literature on them, just so that everyone knows, in case they die, right? In case they're shot. Now, I would imagine that this guy who knows if he's actually the original one. We had initial reports that the shooter was shot. My question, was he shot? And I think that quite possibly the shooter may have been shot. He may be dead. Those may have been correct. But, back to the point, the guy hates the government. Now, when he ran into the terminal shooting, apparently now, that's the latest. I've been trying to keep up with this, and we have a lot of audio we're going to play. But when he came into the terminal shooting, he asked several plainclothes pedestrian civilian types that were there in the vicinity if they were TSA. They said that they were not TSA, but it kind of creates a narrative for this story. Why did he do it? Well, he asked these people if they were TSA, and then he immediately went up and started shooting them. So I imagine most of you followed the story throughout the day. For our international listeners that are dealing with their own domestic problems, we'll bring you up to speed on what has been happening. Got one of the first audio clips we'll play here just to set the background, but there's a lot more to this. Drilling, let's not forget the prior test runs with the dry ice bombs and a few little ditties and smoking guns that we'll be bringing to the broadcast. So hang in there.
Sarah Hashimoris in the Los Angeles Times newsroom. The FBI has lifted a threat watch on LAX airport hours after a man with a rifle opened fire and killed a TSA agent at a passenger screening checkpoint. It was reported earlier that the suspect had been killed, but since then, we've learned that he remains in critical condition.
Yes.
Police have identified the suspect as Paul CIAnCIA. The official could not confirm his age. The official also said police were looking at information that CIAnCIA wasn't a fan of the TSA. Authorities believe that CIAnCIA arrived at a TSA screening area in Terminal 3 at 9:20 a.m. this morning, pulled a rifle out of his bag, and started shooting.
All right, and that's basically the story here. She goes on and just goes through more talking points and updates. So he's carrying a bag. He's carrying anti-government propaganda. That has been changed. Okay, no longer was it attached or attributed to the New World Order. A lot of disinfo and a lot of paranoia in the alternative media because, let's be honest, 9 times out of 10, this gets these people and their motives get pegged on the quote-unquote conspiracy movement. So the story unfolds. Guy hates government. He's anti-government, which is a very broad term, but very convenient. Sure that the good old powers that be will be utilizing this, and the same criminals, thought criminals that continue to push their crap. I'm trying to think of the name of this guy, Potok, with the Southern Poverty Law Center. This guy, you're a criminal if you dare think outside of some narrative, and you're dangerous. So these are, obviously, this is beyond politics. If you run into any building and just start shooting people, you're crazy. Okay, I know people that I think their politics are crazy, and maybe some of their solutions and ideas for the future of this country and the world, seems wild and wacky to me. They're called Democrats and Republicans. But beyond that, I mean, you have to be all sorts of whacked out in the mind. And a lot of people probably do, speak to these kind of folks that are crazy, that are angered and looking for an outlet. But you have to be clinically insane, okay, to do something like this, to want to shoot just random people. And there's been a lot of these little instances, and they'll be bringing out the stats and saying, well, look how many crazy people. Remember the guy at the Holocaust Museum just a few years ago, old man shooting some guard, saying that 9/11 was an inside job. So this guy hasn't said that yet, but it wouldn't surprise us, and a lot of people are already trying to front run that by putting it in this context that if he does turn out to be somebody that is a quote-unquote freedom lover or can be pegged as that, then most of those other people, including myself, would like to say, see, we knew this. Of course, this is always what happens, and that's why it's a conspiracy. So just to play devil's advocate for a moment there, to kind of lay the framework, I think, for what we see across the internet or what you as listeners may run into while looking for information about the as I would put it this moment, very, very sketchy, seemingly false flag that played out yesterday. It's in perfect timing with the 6-week cycle. There's a lot of people that have done a lot of work on looking at cycles, and it seems that every 6 weeks there is some big domestic event that reminds us why we need security, whether it's the Boston bombing, whether it's in this case, the LAX shooter. Most of them are random shooters. It seems that they come, well, not that random, obviously, but every 6 weeks we have something like this. And if you start charting this out and putting the next event 6 weeks from yesterday, within a few days, almost always, there's going to be some big event that happens it just keeps reminding the American people why we need the state to protect us. And the problem, reaction, solution effect, the Hegelian dialectic will prove, I think, the most important thing to everyone, and that is what their ultimate solution is to fix these kind of problems. See, you can walk right into the terminal. Okay, well, let's start strip searching people outside. Let's start doing more and more invasive body scanning and bag scanning and the like. And I think it really does prove the point. We'll go back to this, but it proves the point that it doesn't matter how much security you have on the inside. Somebody can shoot you from the outside. You put people on the outside, somebody can shoot you from the gate. You put people on the gate, somebody shoots at the people on the gate when people go through the gate. So you can keep pushing security back and more walls and making people go through 15 checkpoints, and that's what you have to do in places like Fallujah, now in downtown Baghdad. You've got to go through 20 checkpoints. You've got to get molested, figuratively, a proverbial ass raping to get into the city. So, every time this happens, my good friend Lee Rogers, he lives in the New Hampshire area, and he works in downtown Boston currently. Okay, Boston strong. You know what that means? You have to go through multiple checkpoints to get into the city. You go down to El Paso, anywhere near the border. You have Constitution-free zones and multiple checkpoints. You have literally Fourth Amendment-free areas. People will do a lot and give up even more for this veneer of security. So that's the sad tragedy to that. So from the 6-week cycle to the initial disinfo and seemingly contradictory firsthand reports, that is pretty standard operating procedure when something like this happens. And the fact that, well, just a few days ago, they were really hashing out how to deal with the situation. So everybody's, golf clapping and patting each other on the back for how well they were able to mitigate it and take care of this and the minimalistic amount of damage, other than the one shot in the leg and other dead TSA agent. For the most part, people are hailing this as, a success. But, you have to wonder how much foresight did some have into what happened yesterday at LAX.
We practiced to this. Not more than 3 weeks ago, we took every one of our officers, our patrol officers, and a couple of hundred officers from the Los Angeles Police Department, and we practiced the exact scenario that played out today. And I was talking to the officers involved in this particular incident a few minutes ago, and they said that training was critical to how they responded to this.
So there you go. I mean, they're well trained, ready for the situation. It's good. It's good, right? You want to say that this is forward thinking, that this is progressive police state, right? We know what's going to happen. We know about crazy people. We have the inside tip to this. But at what point does the inside tip mean that they were given info about something or training for something that was in the planning, in the making? There's a lot of other things here. So he's dead, he's not dead. Very reminiscent of the Boston bomber. Did we kill him? No, we didn't kill him. The prior test runs of the security, I think that you always have in most classic false flags, you have probing by intelligence agencies. You have probing by the perpetrators to see exactly what the response will be, to know that you're going to have some kind of success, or at least to get familiarity with the area. So just a few days ago, we had a couple of yahoos that were arrested for planting dry ice bombs in LAX. Kind of weird. And at the time, I was like, that just doesn't make sense. I mean, who actually goes to an airport to pull out shenanigans like this and scare people? Who does that? What kind of crazy, weirdo people decide that is good fun. That's just some good old shenanigans. No one at all. And what does that do? Well, that, only scares the crap out of the people. And if you go to LAX, I mean, we've covered so many different examples of weird stuff that you have to deal with, from TSA agents running around half naked, screaming that they are God, whacked out on cocaine, and God only knows what else. Who knows? Maybe bath salts. So LAX is a different animal altogether. LA is kind of an, enigmatic in that way, right? It's a nice way to say it. It's pretty crazy concrete jungle where there's a lot of, basketball games can result in riots. So people are already really, really, really upset. That's why I gave the story. I was trying to give it at least a little bit of a benefit of the doubt, but immediately the code word here, CIAnCIA, starts fitting into what I believe that is happening, and that is that we're having a huge shift. We are seeing continuity of government, the quote-unquote shadow government solidifying its control, and what happens to government, to people in government that are paranoid of people like you out there that know the truth, that are going to combat their efforts that are being done behind closed doors. They understand this careful balance of control, keeping enough people pleasantly docile so that we don't have revolution, that we don't have a transference of wealth back because the people take it back from those that have been able to give us currency in exchange for money, in exchange for real wealth and value. So they know this, and so they have to have these spectacles, things like these LAX shooters and, the Jared Loftners out there of the world that keep us in perpetual fear. Not that it's really that abnormal, though. Yeah, I think that a lot of people are freaked out, and they're like, oh, my God, Doug, we just didn't have stuff like this before. We didn't have people doing crazy things, shooting up government agencies and taking rifles out before. And I think, you have more of a population now than you did 200 years ago. I mean, we've had a population boom, so just, raw statistics of people that are going to do wacky things are going to go up. You're going to have more instances. We have 10, 12, 20 million people in this country. There's a lot of people here. And the fact that we don't have stuff like this happening every day, and the fact that we live under so much, I think in some areas, unacceptable police brutality, that we don't have more people pissed off shooting at police officers and other people working for authority in all industries, public and private. We don't have more of an outcry. Yeah, people do go shoot their bosses from time to time. That was one of the initial reports that I thought made perfect sense. TSA agents shooting another TSA agent. Yeah, absolutely. You have people that are, definitely upset about whatever it may be at work. And some of them do go, whether they're a postal worker. It used to be the postal worker. They were the archetype for people that went crazy and shot up their bosses, their jobs. But it only happened one time, and I don't even remember the instance. It's been so long. But people still use that old cliche, going postal, as the definition of somebody who goes crazy. And I guess that's, makes sense. If you work at the post office, you do a job that never is complete. It just keeps going and going and going and going. And it never stops. So maybe that makes people crazy. So, this guy, I have to say, I think this is a completely staged and very sketchy operation. I was, like I said, I was all in with CIAnCIA. CIAnCIA. Great name. Very funny, guys. I appreciate it. And I think, at least they have a sense of humor. At least, and this is kind of, it's perfect code, so it lets people all around the world. There's some people besides you out there like, CIA, that's great. Obvious questions that will not be addressed by the mainstream media or anyone else. Was he on drugs? What kind of drugs? Are we going to blame the drugs? Are we going to have a conversation about the drugs? Oh, I didn't mention the fact that the caliber of rifle, just like in Sandy Hook, has changed multiple times. The initial reports was that it was an AR-15, then it was an M4, then it was a shotgun and a pistol. It just varied from person to person to person who you ask. And I think that it's not a testament or attributes to why people give bad initial firsthand response reports. I don't think that that's true. I think it really does give more credence to the idea that there were multiple shooters on the site, and the fact that they were looking for multiple shooters. That in and of itself doesn't mean that there were multiple shooters, but the fact that they use that as a cover to keep people looking all over the place. Very, very well conducted. I mean, so it's got all of the hallmarks. It's got all of the flags that bear, and we've got all of the other backstories that are really big that people should be talking about, like this Bankster bill. So let's just get into it. If you have thoughts, you can text me 512-222-30. What is it? 512-222-3067. You can text me tips and the like, and you can also just email me, Doug at Blacklisted News, if you want something else, put up on the website and looked at. We'll definitely do that in regards, and we'll be following up with this. Hopefully, we'll have an exclusive out from Mr. Lee Rogers in the days coming on the LAX shooter, Paul, CIA in CIA. So anyway, the House voted and passed the Citigroup lobbyist written bill. It is the $712 trillion derivatives bill. It's basically backing your money or their derivatives with your tax dollars through the FDIC. So this came from MapLight, and it came out a few days back on the 30th of October. Later this week, the House of Representatives, and they already did, will be voting on the partisan bill to repeal financial bailout protections the Congress passed in 2010 as part of the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act. The bill, H.R. 992, or the SWAG's Regulatory Improvement Act, would severely limit the reach of the SEC 716 in Dodd-Frank. So basically, the section there that would regulate derivatives, that would push derivatives, okay, and if you're not familiar with a derivative, it's just a bunch of promises, $712 trillion promises and bets. So basically, there are a bunch of bets, hedges. It's kind of like a bookie system. You make a bet, you look at the you look at the game, you decide who you want to go with, and regardless of what happens, maybe you get a little piece of the action. So we have $712 trillion worth of derivatives. These are paper promises at best, digital promises, bets on things that may or may not happen in the future, similar to futures. So it's a lot of liability. It's a lot of things that could go wrong, and a lot of your retirement system, whether it's Social Security, whether it's, well, maybe not Social Security if you have government retirement, but many pensions. Look at the Polish people, the Poland pension systems, and how they are being, publicized. What's the word? They're taking it into the coffers of the government. The government is federalizing, I guess. I'm trying to think of the term where they take over ownership of yours. So they're basically taking the private pension systems and taking them into the control of government. And I think that ultimately, in most places, that will be standard operating procedure. Countries like the United States and a few others, including Canada, that have their own printing presses that are part of the aristocracy, may be able to they have more options. The Federal Reserve does control what's happening in this country, and foreseeably for the next at least few years, very impactful as the world reserve currency. So, $712 trillion. Okay, we talk about the $17 trillion deficit. This is this ticking time bomb that has been, it's turned into the biggest bubble ever. Now, the question is, do the American people and the people of the world end up paying for this if we do see this stall in global growth? The whole system, lending money into existence, has always been a finite amount of time that they have to run its course. And so we've seen this huge printing of money to just unbelievable, unfathomable amounts in just the last 10 years. In the last 10 years, we printed more money than was printed, and not just the United States, all Western worlds and other allies and big G8 countries have printed more than in the previous 90. So just think about that. In 90 years, we printed so much fiat cash. So did the Germans, so did the Chinese, so did the Canadians, and we printed a lot of money. There's millions and millions of dollars in circulation. Now we have just crazy amounts. And with the advent of credit cards, that creates currency itself as well, right? You borrow money. That money doesn't come from anywhere. It's just credit. And so the more and more people borrow on credit cards, you can throw student debt and other unfunded liabilities into that. More and more people as well putting themselves into more and more precarious financial positions. This is where we are today. So Alan Greenspan and many of the other economic wonks and big thinkers said, well, we don't need to regulate these bets because they're interbank bets. Basically, you have money managers, people like Jamie Dimon, people like Lloyd Blankfein, and other investment banks that'll be looking at this, and they know what they're doing, and you don't need to have the government worrying about regulating all this stuff because it's very complicated, and quite literally, it's not going to be mixed and mingled with the regular economy. It's the shadow economy, and the shadow economy is, that's risk and reward, and has nothing to do with the regular economy. And that would be fine, right? I don't care if you and all of the rest of the Blacklisted Radio listeners there in the chat room go and play craps in a back alley. Okay, you guys can go play craps, and you can bet cigarettes and gold coins and your underwear if you want. You can indenture yourself for 100 years, okay, and say, hey, look, we keep playing this game. I'll end up working for you for 100 years. That's fine. If you're a freedom lover, you have to love the idea of letting people indenture themselves and enslave themselves to their own, their own disinterest. People do that. That's fine. But whenever those people out there, okay, or the people let's just continue with this metaphor, the people that are hanging out, making bets in the back alley, when they lose all their money, they still got to eat. They're going to have to, get a bailout. They're going to have to get somebody to give them a helping hand. And there's always an opportunity in giving somebody a helping hand to make even more money, to leverage things even more. And if you knew that guy was going to leverage himself and he was going to need that helping hand and leverage himself even more, maybe you were smart enough to see that. It's kind of what happened in the derivatives market, and the fact that now there's so many of them that they will tank all of the entities that own them. Okay, they will eat them and absorb them. So what does that really mean? Well, that means that all of these huge banks that are criminally involved in this are insolvent. They are absolutely insolvent unless these trades, these bets, these futures come to bear. Well, here's the sad reality, and I mentioned this. We have a country that is deindustrializing in the United States, and the world is as well. We are going to see a return to a slowing of these economies, and that is counterproductive to what we have, and that is only the ability to grow or die. That is what we have in this economy. You don't have to be an economist to figure this out. You have to have growth. Everything is based on growth. If you're not growing, you're dying. You can't just maintain. You can't tread water. You can't doggy paddle your way into blissfulness in this current system, because it all has to continue to grow. It's a Ponzi scheme. It is a scam. And it's all right if you have a regulated scam and you have good people in government and you have good regulations and you have good balance of power and there is a control of the creation of it. Now, it's always pitted against the people. It's always going to minimize their power and to give it to ultimately the power of the press. So it's not to say that the system we have today is moral, but putting people into this unwinnable situation is immoral. It is economic terrorism. The system itself, is not good. It's not good at all. And there's no reason that we really have to have this state. And we could have competing state currencies, but basically what we see today and what we have today are nation-state banks and currencies that are being floated. And we have the global Bank of International Settlement system that many of the Western world rely on and work under these frameworks. So things are changing in a lot of other realms. I mean, I don't know what else to say about this other than, if this gets put on the American people, then ultimately they will bankrupt FDIC, and then those that still have their money in the banks in the coming years will have no security. And ultimately, this is a way to stage a nice trimming, a haircut for the American people when these ticking time bombs, these economic Molotov cocktails get thrust at the taxpayers. So it'll be thrust at the banks. The banks will end up taking money from you to pay off these derivatives because the people will have to be bailed out, because it will either be that or an implosion. And the powers that be, I know a lot of people think they want the implosion, but they want a controlled demolition. Remember that. And in a controlled demolition, there's people that are on both sides, that are benefiting, that are losing. And the people that are ignorant, that are trusting of government, that are stuck in the Stockholm Syndrome, are usually the ones that are, hit hardest. It's the dopey girl that's in love with the bad guy that gets hit the hardest when, when he wrongs her. It's only the people that really, money's money. As long as you have skills and, you're willing to work and you have an able body, you probably will be able to make it through. But the people that are emotionally crushed, that have this, this sycophant love for the state, those people are really going to be hurt because they won't know what to do. Because their whole paradigm, everything that they thought was true, that and being dead ass broke and being butt slammed by the New World Order, that is going to put them over the edge. So it's happening in the background here. That's all I have to really say about it. There's a huge shift, though. Here's one thing that a lot of people haven't talked about, but I think it's very interesting. Turkey's arm purchase should jolt U.S. alliance policies. One of the nice things about being the military-industrial complex and selling weapons to all of our friends and allies is that we really have control over those weapons. Okay, they have integrator, friend or foe, IFF. Basically, every Lockheed Martin bomb, plane, Boeing, all of these things have a little signal beep, 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 that they put out. Don't hit me. Don't attack me. Well, the proliferation of Russian weaponry and now Chinese weaponry to countries that are in the, I would say, in the gray area. They're definitely friendly to the U.S. and Israel and key strategic allies and partners, but they don't mind double dipping. You know, they shop the U.S. against countries like China. And there is a huge shift in the purchasing of weapons, not only by Turkey, but by other countries throughout the Middle East. Turkey being one of the first and more shocking examples of people going to others besides the United States of America's military-industrial complex to buy weapons, especially the Chinese. Now, the Chinese are selling lots of guns. Don't get me wrong. I got a friend, wink, wink. I got a friend who's got an AK-47 that's a Norinco, SKS rifles, you name it. I mean, there's lots of Chinese military hardware that you can buy that is readily available, or at least was, in the United States. Got some guys like, there's nothing that you can buy anymore. It costs too much money to buy anything. I know, man. I don't buy bullets any longer. You know, you can't be a plinker anymore. It's really, really expensive. They're just pricing it to the point where you have to spend a lot of money. You know? And thank you, preppers, for buying, 15 zillion bricks of, and the Department of Homeland Security. Between all of y'all, you've bought all of the ammo, and I understand. But, you don't have to go overboard and get 50 bricks of 22 shells. I need them all. You're just as bad as the damn Department of Homeland Security. Why you need so many hollow point bullets, Homeland Security? Well, just in case we need to take some money from the American people. Yeah. Anyway, not to bang preppers. I mean, if you're buying, you're prepping for the apocalypse. I don't know, how well that'll work out for you, but I tell you one thing: the Department of Homeland Security's multi-billion-dollar purchases of weapons and ammunition in this country has made it completely scarce. But if you talk to the people at Walmart, which a friend of mine did, he said that they blamed it all on the preppers. It's the preppers that are doing it. They're the ones buying all the ammunition. They're buying it off the shelves. They're buying more than they can hold. You're like, really? Okay. Well, I don't know. I think the supply there is really the issue. Department of Homeland Security. Where was I going with this? Oh, this whole week has been revelation after revelation from Glenn Greenwald and The Guardian, and now he's going to be hooking up with other financial titans to build his own alternative media platform. And I think that's great, though I have a lot of questions about where all of this information is coming from. Of course, if you didn't hear, Edward Snowden has a job at the biggest Russian website. Got a big job, and he's doing all right, and he wants to testify to Congress and to the German parliament. That is a new spin, and so we found out some pretty interesting things that we already knew, but it shows you how the U.S. is being used, and I've said this so many times, it's really cliche, is being used as the bad guy in all of this to justify a new world order. This is what I mean, okay? Mike Rogers, number one, argues that spying is okay as long as government doesn't get caught. I like this thought because it was okay. It was okay until they did get caught. Now that there is international awareness, it's still okay. Okay, I don't think that less people are going to AT&T, Verizon. I don't think that less people are buying iPhones and using their biometric information to open them up. I don't think that less people are using email. Maybe people are going, at least the tech savvy and the privacy advocates are going to things like, encryption, peer-to-peer VPN. But the majority of Americans, the public, the people that should be appalled. I mean, the people that were already appalled, you and I, we were already pissed off and disgusted about this long before Edward Snowden gave a package of documents to Glenn Greenwald. Okay, going back to Project Echelon, go back to Project Trailblazer. You want to look into some creepy stuff, look into Operation Garden Plot. I mean, it goes on and on and on. We know back in the 1990s even, that the NSA had a backdoor into Windows Windows operating system all the way forward. Okay, and then that's not a big story. It wasn't a big story at the time, and it's been years since we found this out. Russ Tice, just to name one amongst many whistleblowers, have brought forward caches of information about Big Brother and the apparatus. Only now, through the highest of technologies, do they have the ability to really, watch the majority of things, or at least be able to go back and create that spider web, that backlog of information through metadata, and be able to break down friendship networks and your sphere of influence, and other buzzwords they like to use like that. Get a complete composite of friends and the network of people that you associate with. So anyway, Mike Rogers, he is the head of the Congressional Intelligence Committee. So here's your elected representatives making great comments that I can bang on. And he says that it does not matter. Okay, it doesn't matter at all if they don't get caught. And there is some truth in this poison. He's poisoning the well. This whole story poisons the well because it gets people more acclimated to the idea that we need this. We need to be monitored. We need to be followed, surveilled. Obviously, if you look at this LAX shooter, the Big Brother apparatus that we have today, the trillion-plus war on terror, who knows? I mean, why even put a monetary value on giving away all of your constitutional rights? Okay, living in a complete police state hasn't made us safe, regardless of all of the behavioral detection monitors and people that are being trained to identify terrorists, and even now, I mean, going one step further and prying into brains of people to see if they are malevolent or if they want to do good. All of this is just a huge waste of time, resources, and the real economy has been broken down, and we have this transition economy. It's kind of I want to get back to this, but I do want to kind of expound on this point, and that is we have a transitional economy. We used to have people that worked making widgets and worked in factories. We had a factory. We had a factory industrial-based economy, and the Industrial Revolution allowed us to expand the U.S. population, to expand our lifespans through technology, through hygiene, cleanliness, through the advent of plumbing, washing of clothes, antibiotics, bleach, all of these wonderful things that have allowed us to live much, much longer and not live in this disgusting manner where we were ultimately neo-feudalists. We were hunter-gatherers. We have now been able to ascend beyond that, and that is beautiful. But can we get past that point? So we had that economy, and that economy I don't think is necessarily good. People say, bring back those jobs. Get in your factory and get to work. Get to work making those widgets. I understand. I mean, if you're getting paid $50 an hour or something really, really good to work in a factory line, maybe you want to do it. And there's a lot of people out there that are probably interested in, getting into cubicles, getting into assembly lines, and, basically being human robots. I don't know how many of those people actually listen to this podcast. And I think it's debatable as to whether that would be better for the American economy. We definitely wouldn't have the idle hands that we have now. We might not have the debt burden, the societal burden for those people that are not working in factories. But the factories aren't coming back. Okay, you and I know this. So we're having a transition where we are going to, hopefully, wink, wink, use technology to expand and broaden the amount of jobs and opportunities in this country. Now, the factories aren't coming back, so we have to do something. And maybe technology will be able to provide us with those opportunities? Maybe not. Probably the latter. But what it does do is it with this police state is it keeps people working. Now, people will look back to the war on drugs, and they'll look to the prison plex. They will look to the current system that we live under, and they'll say, well, we got a lot of people that are doing things that are important. They're doing taxes. I've been dealing with that. My God. Oh. Right? How many people are working doing taxes? So if there was no IRS system, those people would have to do something else, right? They'd have to find real jobs and be productive and do things. You know, there's books to be made. There's books to be done. There's lots of accounting work. There are lots of things that need to be counted. And so it's not to say that there isn't valuable, great things in society that are beneficial, that IRS auditors, that people at H&R Block, how many millions of seasonal workers you have there, could be doing to, benefit humanity in this country in general. Yeah, there's a lot of things, and I'm not going to go through them all. And heck, this is a Saturday morning podcast, so we're not going to be able to create some utopia here. Although I would much rather live in harmony with the people in the chat room than the majority of people that I run across at Walmart. So, and even though we do have our differences, I mean, we at least have some enlightened thinkers that would, I hope, maybe put most of the bull crap and political philosophies to the side to get things done, to get things, because at the end of the day, people, they might bash me for talking about anarcho-capitalism or maybe giving too much credit to the state and the government and having one on all sides of the aisle. But at the end of the day, I think everyone just wants something that's better. So what we have today is people transitioning into this police state, militarized world, and instead of working in factories, they're working in a lot of other capacities to shake down people. It's a hell of a trend. It's a horrible trend, and it is making life in this country for a lot of people, maybe some of you out there, a lot worse. And it's taking away from the quality of life and all of the exceptionalism that used to be in this country, because this transitional economy that, my God, I hope transitions to something much better than what it is today, and that is just a progressively worse and encroaching police state. So, back to NSA spying. Yeah, I mean, that's the economy. We have a police economy. And the shift started happening in the 1980s. With all of the drug warriors. My father was actually part of that. He worked for the police department in a tertiary level, but I've said it before. If you're the guy that has a deli shop across from a police station, you're really working for tax dollars. You're really part of the state to some extent, because you and your livelihood benefit off the state. My dad was in one of those positions. If you owned a McDonald's in Norfolk, Virginia, you're going to have to give a little bit to the fact that it's the military being there. Not how lovely downtown Norfolk is. Although it's not that bad. It's not any scarier than other places in Houston or Dallas or even Austin, Texas. So not to bash it, but the reason that there's people there is because the military is there. Without the military, there wouldn't be people there. Anyway, so I like how, and I knew this was going to happen. All of these commies, socialists, and other a-hole political leaders from around the world that aren't much better than ours, if you can say that they are, that are not huge freedom advocates, have been appalled and want the U.S. government and the American people to atone for your evil, for listening to all of our phone calls. Well, that wasn't quite true. Wasn't quite true. And we all love to bash the U.S. government, right? There's a lot of anti-government people that say, well, it's obviously the epicenter of the evil, and it is the United States, and we want to listen to everything. And that might be true. Probably is. But The United States, in all of its glory, can't listen to the whole damn world. We've got moles, minions, fiber optic nodes. We've got transmission systems and very high-tech eavesdropping equipment located in embassies. But we just can't watch everything in the damn world. But guess who can? Israel. Israel, Tel Aviv. It's where a lot of the telecommunications backbones of the world are. And you've noticed that they have had a complete media shielding. Just saying. Now, you know what? I'm sorry. I apologize for saying that. Just saying does not pass. Okay? I am absolutely saying that the U.S. media has done everything because they are shell-shocked and they know that they will be painted as anti-Semites, even the few that are not completely on board, probably are not interested in it. But there were a few stories this week that highlighted that the Israelis were the ones listening to the French, only to find out yesterday, the day before, that many of these governments were actually monitoring themselves. Okay, shock, awe, and they were giving this information not only to the United States, but to other NATO governments under the guise of NATO. Now, most of you are probably saying, well, what does it matter? Who gives a crap who initiated these orders? Who cares about the framework under which they're extrapolating all of this information from the people of the world? And I think it's very important because they've been talking about the United States. And yes, we do control NATO. We have some majority power in what happens. That is, of course, obvious. But all of these scumbag governments, from Angela Merkel in Germany to the most unpopular French president ever, Francis Hollande, who he himself is a socialist extraordinaire. You go to Spain, you go to all these countries where you have these monarchs that have been fleecing their people, and they all had the audacity, the gah, to blame the U.S. for everything. Oh, yeah, these damn Americans. If it wasn't for them, you guys would be living in freaking hog heaven over here. We wouldn't have stolen all your money. So it's damn Americans. Well, I lay blame where it's due. But we figured out, and it goes right back to what I believed before, and this is a huge criminal cabal that is working in tandem, in concert, to spy on the respective peoples of the world. This isn't some U.S. huge data gathering system. And beyond that, I mean, it's even beyond the U.S. I mean, you could say it's the CIA, which is, front running with, this new technology with Google, In-Q-Tel. They are working on these public-private partnerships and projects, and so it's bigger. It's bigger than even nation states themselves. And the shift has been pretty interesting, I guess, because everybody wants to now have their own internets. So we might be buying some new domain names. We'll get blacklistednews.cn and blacklistednews.fm and some others. The internet and the centralization of it is going to shift. And just like the economy, where it goes, I mean, ultimately, we'll find out in the very near future. I hope for the best. I really do. I think that we are exceptional. I think that people in general, not just in this country, but those that do love the idea of individual liberty and do want to take the responsibilities that go with that, I think a lot of great things can happen in the very near future. So I'm very optimistic and happy that people are seeing through most of this malarkey. Unfortunately, most people are going to be caught up in this, this whole debate as to what we have to do. Should we start giving the TSA Viper teams more guns? Do we have to arm everyone at the airport? And better yet, it's probably just a really good distraction and, fulfills the need to keep scaring the crap out of the American people so that they can protect us and their allies, as they say. We're just trying to protect you. Just trying to give you some love. It's worked for a while, and they've been pretty pretty effective at using that model, though there is that obvious shift. I guess that's pretty much what we're going to do today. Of course, we're having truncated shows. We're doing them just hour formats for the foreseeable future. We're still in the move. We're packing up, moving, getting things ready to get into the new house, which we're very, very, very excited about. But you out there have had to do this, know about all of the leaps and bounds and all of the allocation of your wealth to get security deposits and bullcrap that you need to shift. And unfortunately, we're going to have to be doing a lot of that kind of stuff because utilities and the cable internet providers and such are not going to be the same. We're not going to have the same availability. So a lot of rigmarole, a lot of other things that are happening in the family that we're really excited about. And so, yeah, and you guys are extended family. So if you want to continue to help and support us and what we do, when I say we, I mean all of the people, you in the chat room that collectively, help this show, shine light on so many of these different subjects. You can go to blacklistednews.com and right up there at the top, you can see that support link. Click there. You can make a monetary contribution. You can also just let people know about the show, spread the word through social media or through email. Let people know by giving them links to articles that you think would be of interest to them. And, of course, remember, hit up the politically aware. Those people are going to respond to these kind of shows better because this isn't an introduction to Conspiracy 101. It's not. This is probably a show for those that are well in the know and can appreciate some of the comedy and the backstory that we inject into this conversation. Just like, where was this? I'm just going to look at one more thing here. Just like, with the BBC's latest, I don't know if I talked about this on the show, but Zero Hedge did a good breakdown on it this morning. Are conspiracy theories the biggest threat to democracy? And I think that there is some validity to this. And I'll only say that people that are conspiracy theorists, people that buy into conspiracies, are people that really have the ability to ration outside of the state. Most people are so in love and so indoctrinated into the state that they cannot believe that individuals, not the government, but individuals in the government and in the corporate private sector would collude, would conspire to work against the best interest of the American people or people anywhere in the world for private profit and for political agendas. And so, yeah, you're dangerous. You're absolutely dangerous because you're not one of these people that think, well, I went to the voting box and I cast my ballot and that's what I do. And, well, we'll just see. We'll just go ahead and accept that's the current system of the day. I mean, if you recognize the fact that the markets and media and public perception swing the political paradigm much more than any other facet, much more than the ballot box. You want the NSA to respond? You have to throw some documents in their face. You want Barack Obama to explain what he means or to clarify or to change his tune? It's only through embarrassment and shaming the criminal cabal, the regime. It's only through public perception changes do they even try to give lip service or try to change policies. Only out of our absolute rage and overwhelming public disgust and displays of public outcry and anger do we even see the media, the mainstream media, talking about these issues. It's only when they become such an issue, so big that they can no longer ignore it. Bitcoin, namely one. I mean, not that I'm a huge Bitcoin fan. I'm pretty agnostic when it comes to Bitcoin. As far as good, bad, I think that everything that you put money into is a bet, really. So, it's not to take away or give credit to Bitcoin, but the media completely ignored Bitcoin. Only when it became so big, so popular, and a convenient out for those in Cyprus trying to get their money out of the banks did they even address this. And only when it became such a financial liability have they been able to say, well, we're going to want to tax the crap out of this now. We need to regulate it. So once you reach that level with anything, once you get to that parabolic level, that's when you're going to see the interest of government. That's when you're going to see the interest of the media when it becomes that. And not before. Absolutely not before. Not when you go to the ballot box. Not when you go to, do whatever it is that you think is political action. For the most part, I mean, there are some pretty effective political actions. Only when somebody like Banksy paints a picture that causes an emotional outcry do people really take note. I mean, he's just one example. There's thousands of them. I got to get out of here, and I want to thank all of you for being part of the show, continuing to support it. Go to blacklistednews.com. Go ahead, subscribe to the newsletter. You'll get daily updates on news that we have at blacklistednews.com, and you'll also get media updates when we have them for the podcast. I'll be shooting out a newsletter today with this podcast in it for those that aren't aware, that didn't get the bat signal. And, hey, thanks. I'll be back next week at this exact time, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, for another live edition of Blacklisted News Radio. Until then, take care.